Hi everyone, welcome to Gnan Cloud Garage. In this session, I'm going to talk about what is business continuity and disaster recovery. So before jumping to the key concept, business continuity and disaster recovery, it can be implemented on an organization, site level, or a regional level, or we can implement on a cloud level. It can be a private cloud, public cloud, or hybrid cloud, multi-cloud environments. Even in the on-premises, or it can be considered as a edge locations as well. So here is the quick agenda. So first we can have understand quick introduction to BCDR. BCDR means business continuity disaster recovery. And what is business continuity? What is disaster recovery? And disaster recovery, the two key important components are RTO, request time objective, and request point objective. And business continuity versus disaster recovery planning. We can talk about the differences between BC business continuity and disaster recovery planning, and what are all the disaster recovery options available, and BCDR for modern workloads, and few real world scenario examples, VMware Site Recovery Manager and Zerto solution architectures. So let's start with the first point. So introduction to business continuity disaster recovery. In general, every organization they have a need a infrastructure to run their workloads on virtual machine level and container workloads. Most of the organizations these days, all the infrastructure applications running on virtual machines and some applications running on container workload. So the common workloads within a data center is container workloads, VM workloads. And also to start these data center projects or infrastructure, either on premises, edge location, or cloud locations, the most common key points are the first day zero, we focus on solution design, and day one, we can plan for deploy or we call it as implementation, and day two is a regular daily operations, and day n is nothing but a life cycle. It's all includes the updates and upgrades. So these key steps are whenever we apply for a DC1, it's same we can apply for a DC2 as well. And some organization they may have a two active sites. Some organization they may have DC1 as active and DC2 as a standby site. That means, in other words, primary site, secondary site, or some organization they may maintain not only two sites, they can also have a more than two sites. So in an on-premises cloud environment, a solution architect is responsible for designing and implementing the architecture that supports the organization business goals and objectives. And the solution architect designs and implement disaster recovery and business continuity plan to ensure that environment can recover from a disaster or outage, that means any power outage, and continue to support the organization operations. For example, a solution architect may create a diagram that shows the different components of disaster recovery plan, including backups, failover systems, and recovery procedures. So I will explain you the solution architect at the end of the session. Okay, first we can understand some basic points. So what is business continuity? Business continuity focus on keeping business operational during a disaster scenario. So, a broad disaster recovery approach whereby enterprises plan for recovery of the entire business process. So, business continuity, the capability of organization to continue delivery of products or services at the predefined accept levels following disruptive incident. So, one example is suppose we have an organization, let's call it as we have a one of the finance organization within the Singapore location. Within a Singapore, let's say we have one location is run in Bedok and another organization, another branch office is running in another location, suppose Tai Sing. Two different locations within a Singapore, and either within a location level or you can also maintain a cloud level availability zones also, or availability zone 1, availability zone 2, any scenario. So here business continuity means, let's say our business application team is working on site 1, there is some power outage on site 1, but without impacting to their business immediately, with a less than an hour, the team will be moving to the site 2 and they will start operating from the site 2. But will there be any impact to their product and services? Still they can operate their services from the site 2 location, because this is called business continuity in case of any outage happen on one site. Okay. And business continuity plan, process of creating systems of prevention and recovery to deal with potential threats to company. So this planning is nothing but a, let's say we identified there is some outage on site 1, we are planning to move some of our key application team members to site 2. The staff is going to the site 2 to start their regular day-to-day operations. But in order to do that, there may be some infrastructure planning, some business continuity plans. There is some key stakeholders who can start, initiate, take the decision to move our team due to this outage. They are sending this, and all includes the, it may be vary from one organization to another organization, but this process creating systems of prevention and recovery to deal with potential threats to the company, that entire process we call it as a business continuity plan. Now, let's talk about the disaster recovery. So, disaster recovery focus on restoring data access and IT infrastructure after a disaster. Let's say we understand there is a outage, but it can be a different kind of outages we can experience. Some scenarios, the outages can be power outage, that means inability to access servers, and some scenario, natural disaster, it's like a critical infrastructure damage, and other scenarios like a cyber attack, data theft, and network downtime. And there may be some vendor errors, like some applications may have inability to execute integrated business function, application layer errors also. During that time, business continuity means immediately we are just focusing on the business operations during a disaster, but disaster recovery mainly focusing on restoring data access. Okay. And to minimize data loss and business disruption, and use of alternative resources to establish or re-establish functionality if primary resources are not available or malfunctioning, and procedure and method for returning a data center to a full operation after a catastrophic interruption, and the recovery of lost functionality and data. And disaster recovery typically uses a backup site, because even though if your primary site or a cloud environment, anything disaster happen, to without interrupting to the business, our staff will start functioning from second site. But how about the disaster recovery? While recovery, they will still depends on a backup site. Suppose for this site 1, this is the backup site. For site 2, site 1 will be the backup site, because we cannot keep all our backup in the same site. Definitely it will be on a another site. Okay. So hope you understand the differences between business continuity and disaster recovery. And the key point is business continuity focus on key business operational, and disaster recovery focus on restoring data access and IT infrastructure. Okay. And another key point, disaster recovery have a two key items, RTO, recovery time objective, and recovery point objective. So recovery time objective means targeted duration of time and a service level within which a business process must be restored after a disaster or disruption. And recovery point objective, the maximum targeted period during the which transactional data is lost from an IT service due to a major incident. Suppose if you notice this diagram, there is an actual disruptive event happen. For example, the morning 9 o'clock, and the data recovery point, that means the actual time data restoration recovery point objective, until what time we can able to restore our data. Okay. And the system back online, how long will it take, max time to recover? So how long will it take to recover our data? So the whatever the recovery point we have, that is refers as a recovery point objective. And recovery time objective means how long the maximum time to recover. Generally the time of recovery, it's maybe very different, so depends on the organization architectures. Okay, so sometimes we may recover within a fraction of seconds if we have a any of the stretched cluster concept. Some scenarios, if you do not have stretched cluster concept, we may the restoration may take a while, depends on the data size. Okay, and now let's talk about what is the differences between business continuity and disaster recovery planning. As I mentioned, disaster recovery mainly focus on the restoration. So restoration means the most infrastructure, IT infrastructure assets, irrespective of a on-premises, edge location, or cloud environments. So the most common items are server, storage network, and data backup and offsite replication, and alternative site like site 2, site 3, and so on, and IT recovery process. These all include in a disaster recovery plan. And when it comes to the business continuity plan, the main key points are business continuity policies and strategies, and risk management, business continuity plans, and validation and testing. Once it is recovered, they have to business control plan, they have to do validate and test. So within a disaster recovery plan, and the light green color is refers as the infrastructure layer, and the gray color refers as a management layer, because management only took the decision to initiate to kickstart the BCDR, okay, business continuity and disaster recovery. And the top layer is refers as a policy layer. It may be vary from one organization to another organization. And another key difference is, let's say business continuity plan responds to a destructive event in case of any outages or natural disaster. So both plans need to be initiated, and include staffing plan. So staffing plans our organization employees, so that can be applicable within a business continuity plan, how we are moving our staff to another site, okay, without disturbing to our business operations. And include supply chains plans also, it's mainly within a business continuity plan. And include technology plans, but technology plans includes both on BCP and DRP, disaster recovery plan. And gear it toward continued business operations, and also gear it toward minimized downtime and restoring IT system. The restoration portion only within a disaster recovery plan. And now another key terminology within the business continuity and disaster recovery is, normally within a business impact, and we have to perform a business impact analysis and risk assessment, and also we should follow some service level agreements. Service level agreement is nothing but an agreement between company and customer. So sometimes there is a maximum tolerable downtime and maximum tolerable data loss. Always we have a, most commonly every organization have a common SLAs, and 999. 999 means 99.99% we have to provide a availability our infrastructure to customer. So that is called business continuity planning. When it comes to disaster recovery planning, we may have as different scenarios like recovery time objective and recovery point objective. But what the main key point here is, consider business process that will meet MTD, maximum tolerable downtime, and maximum tolerable data loss. So that means most of the time that it is like a RTO, recovery time objective is less than MTD, maximum tolerable downtime, and request point objective also less than maximum tolerable data loss. And recovery also, there may be some certain process involved within the organization. A few examples I highlighted here. Suppose application one. So for application one, there is a dependency needs DB to be first restore. For application two, restore for application one must be restored first, then DB1. There is a dependency. Okay, so we have to follow according to the restoration process, and a specific sequence we should follow while restoring. And the database one, so recovery time object is 3 and recovery point objective is 3. And database 2 also there may be a certain scenario, because database have a huge data, so they slightly it may take a longer time. And some scenarios, if your organization is managing it stretched cluster or metro cluster scenarios, RTO and RPO are almost near to 0. That means within a few seconds it will become a back to normal. Okay. Now let's understand the recovery BCDR or recovery disaster recovery options. We have options like cold DR, warm DR, and hot DR. Let's understand what is importance of cold DR. Cold DR means having the infrastructure in place but not full technology hardware software need to restore. That means cold DR is nothing but we can use any backup software. For example, Veeam, Veritas Net Backup, Commvault. These are all the backup tools. You that means when you have a backup tool already, you have took the backup of your daily operation. We no need a full technology of hardware and software to restore services. You can use the tool to start restoring. That is called cold DR. And warm DR means already stocked with a hardware representing a reasonable facsimile of that found in a primary site but not containing customer data. That means it is like a secondary site. In case of any primary site disaster happen, we can use a synchronous data to start restoring our within our production environment. And hot DR. Hot DR means generally we should have a stretched cluster environment, or we can also call it as metro cluster environment, fully functional and running concurrently to production cluster, ready to shortly take over in the event of disaster. If the active site is failed, the customers is easily accessing from a secondary site. There will be very minimal impact within a hot DR, but it will be a customer's choice. In the day one itself, they have to take the decision. They should follow cold DR or warm DR or hot DR. During the business continuity plan and disaster recovery plans, they will initiate the specific DRs accordingly. Okay. Now, BCDR, business continued disaster recovery for modern workloads. Suppose I am taking one example of disaster recovery, business continued disaster recovery capabilities for OpenShift. Nowadays, OpenShift is one of the most popular Kubernetes workload. OpenShift is a enterprise grade Kubernetes platform. Let's try to understand these three options. How we can do cold DR, warm DR, and hot DR. Within a cold DR means OpenShift have their native backup tool that is called OADP. OADP full form is OpenShift API for data protection. So OADP is a backup solution based on OpenShift, and it will help you to backup, and also in case of any disaster happen, it will help you to recover. That is called cold DR. And another scenario for warm DR, it is another words we call it as regional disaster recovery. It's mainly for asynchronous replication and across latency lines. And another scenario is hot DR. It is a metropolitan disaster recovery. That means it is like a stretched cluster environment. If you want to configure stretch cluster within a OpenShift, we can use one of the Red Hat tool that is called Red Hat OpenShift Data Foundation. When you use Red Hat OpenShift Data Foundation, it will help you to do synchronous replication with latency prerequisites. And how about my physical servers? Physical servers and storage you can maintain, for example, HP DL380 380 Gen 11 servers on your both sides, site 1 and site 2. And the storage you can use HPE Alletra storage 6K or 9K servers with a metro clusters configuration. And it will support not only 100 kilometers, even if the both sites have more than 100 kilometers or over 1000 kilometers also, this metropolitan disaster recovery synchronous application will support. Okay. And we have to uh, do a peer persistent configurations on a Alletra storage level, so that there will be less impact to the production in case of any disaster recovery occurs. And another scenario, let's say we have all the production is running on VMware. We have two sites, site 1 and site 2, but both sites have a storage replication. As I mentioned, Alletra, from site 1 to site 2, there is a storage replication. Alletra is the storage model. And we have a servers running on vSphere platform, and we have a multiple virtual machine. To manage this infrastructure, we are using a vCenter server within a site, a primary site. And same way, we have another site, secondary site, and we also call it as DR site or recovery site. But to maintain the disaster recovery plans, we have to install a SRM tool, VMware SRM. Full form is Site Recovery Manager. But infrastructure level, we have a server, storage, and network equipment. And in case of disaster happen, using the Site Recovery Manager, the name itself, it clearly says Site Recovery Manager. When the site is any disaster happen, so the color servers become a down. already red alert. We can restore from the secondary site or a recovery site. Either we can restore from the storage replication layer, or we can use the initiate the SRM tool to restore our infrastructure. Okay, but it may take a time to restore back to the normal state. And another scenario, the Zerto solution architecture. Even Zerto also one of the HPE tool. Even HPE also providing a Zerto. It will help you to help you for a business continuity and disaster recovery plans. The only thing is within our vSphere environment, we have to configure ZVM, Zerto Virtual Manager, and same way we should configure ZVM on DR site. And this ZVM, what how it will help is within our ESXi host level, we no need to install agent on host level. We can just configure a VRA. VRA means virtual replication appliance. This VRA appliance must be dedicated for each ESX host. Let's say you have 100 hosts, each host running with a one VRA appliance. This VRA appliance purpose is it will do the continuous replication to DR site. In case any disaster happen on production site, we can restore from the DR site. That is the functionality of Jetto Virtual Manager and also the VRA Virtual Replication Appliance. But to manage this console, we always use Jetto Virtual Manager. But to initiate the continuous replication, we require each host, each ESXi host must run with a virtual replication appliance. And similarly, another scenario, how do we provide a modern data production solution architecture design with cloud experience? Generally, as I mentioned, every organization minimally have two sites or more than two sites. Suppose we have production site and a replica site. That means secondary site. And we have ESXi hosts are running. On top of ESXi host, we can configure a SV center server. Suppose our ESX, instead of ESX, if we are configure a Hyper-V, we need a SCVM, System Center Virtual Machine Manager. That is one of the Microsoft tool. And we should also run a multiple production VMs, and we need a production storage. Storage can be a HPE Alletra storage. And we should configure Zerto Virtual Manager on both sides, and it we have to configure virtual replication appliances. It will help you to start replicating our virtual machine. First, we have to pair our both sides, production and replica side. Once we pair, the continuous data replication backup level, no snapshot, no agents. It will start replicating our VMs to replica site. And suppose, how about our long-term data? For the long-term data, long-term retention purpose, we have to configure a repository. So this repository can be a cloud location. That's why we mentioned solution architect design with cloud experience. So we can configure on a AWS, Azure, or you can use a third-party tools. For example, Skeleti, Atesca. If our customer data is around 50 terabyte, we can propose a Atesca solution to provide a object storage. This object storage will help to store our long-term retention data. That means more than 2 months old data, last 6 months, 1 year, and above 1 year data, we can store it within the Skeleti Atesca. It will provide a object storage. And suppose if the customer data is more than 500 terabytes, that scenario will propose a high level solution, that is Skeleti Ring. It will also help to store our long-term retention data. Okay, so based on the customer requirement, we can propose either Ring or Atesca. So schedule retention process. So CBT based, no snapshots and no agents. This is the, hope you understand this architecture as well. And long-term retention repository, secondary storage, object based. So secondary storage can be, you can configure using HP Apollo servers. You can group the multiple HP servers and configure the CLT Atesca, or you can configure Ring. Okay, and that data is always replicas and journals will be running on a replica site. Okay, and it is also completely secured. Okay, and even our replica site also secured, and the data is always keep immutable copies, and it will always start replicating to production site to replica site. Okay, and also the repository locations. And similarly, another scenario, what is a modern data protection solution architecture for production site and Microsoft Azure directly to the cloud location? Even this scenario also will support, but only thing is we can use a Zerto cloud appliance. So Zerto cloud appliance is needed on a Azure side, but in our Zerto virtual manager needed on a production site. And we are a always virtual replication appliance. It will help you to continuous replicate to Azure cloud. But only thing is it will stored on page blob storage. We require a block blobs or page blobs and all the replicas to store the replicas and journals. Okay. And similarly, another architecture is modern data production solution architect designed for Kubernetes environment. Even for Kubernetes also, we can use multiple Kubernetes like Azure Kubernetes or Google Elastic Kubernetes, Google Kubernetes engine or OpenShift, any scenario. Here also, same scenario. Jet2 cluster will help to replicate the data from production to DR side. And for the repository, long-term retention data, we can use multiple scenarios like we can use Azure blobs, or we can use Amazon S3 simple storage service. Some scenarios we may use Amazon S3 Glacier, Amazon S3 Standard, and it will also support for a multi-protocol support. We can use NFS, SMB, S3, and also we can use HP Store One also for the long-term retention LTR purposes. Okay, so this is the high-level architecture. Hope you understand how we can do the business continuity and disaster recovery plans. But the plans and the SLAs may slightly vary, policies may vary from company to company, but the concept is same. Okay, so thank you. Hope you understand the business and disaster recovery. Thanks for watching. Please do view, like, share, and subscribe to the Ignite Cloud Garage channel if you're watching first time. And if you're already subscribed, I appreciate all your support. Bye for now.